before I get into how I installed this, I'm going to talk a little bit about putting the felt strip on. Again, this is an 87, so the 87, 88 have three pieces of trim. There's a cap here, and you have a driver's side and a passenger side, same for the back. Before 87, that was one piece that went all the way across. So for this one, these are two different felt strips pieces. You buy it in one piece, but you have to cut it in the middle here and trim it down a little bit because these two do not go all the way across. If you've seen my rant video, I think that was rant number 2 about the felt. This stuff is a joke when you buy it, and it would not stick. So I had to completely remove it all after putting it on. Again, you can check out the rant video to see what was happening, but this has now been on for a couple of weeks and it is not pulling away. It is a nice tight fit regardless of where the rivets are at. And that's all thanks to this stuff. So basically what I had to do after several days of having the felt with the adhesive backing that it comes with attached with the clamps on it, I took the clamps off. It all peeled right off. And that was even with using adhesion promoter. So this stuff did not work well at all. So I literally pulled all of the adhesive tape off of the felt strips. Because the felt strips didn't tear up at all. They literally fell off so easy that the felt strips were still in one nice straight piece. So anyway, I'll stop ranting. I used that weather strip adhesive, put a very thin layer on the trim back here, spread it out with a little putty knife. I mean really thin layer. You do not need to put a whole lot on there. Just make sure you get the whole surface covered. And then I put the felt strips back on after I removed the adhesive tape that was on them, and put all the clamps back on. I'll throw some pictures in throughout so everybody can see. I didn't actually video all that because I was so ticked off about it. I just wanted to figure out what to do and how to fix it. Didn't think about the video part, but I want you guys to know about it now since it has worked really well, and you may have the same problem if you buy some new felt strips for your T-tops. So anyway, I got all that put on and got my holes poked out for the rivets. Once the felt was firmly adhered to the trim, and now we'll pick up with installing the trim onto the car. So let me know what you think in the comments. All right, it's time to start getting our trim installed. And what you can see here is I have a package of butyl tape. Now this is 3/4 of an inch wide, so it's really way too much to apply on each side of the roof here. So what I've done is I took this, I measured out how long of a piece I would need. I took it in the house and I used a pizza cutter and I cut down the middle, and I made about 3 passes real slow to stay in the middle to keep, you know, about half the thickness of each piece. And so out of one stretch of this tape, I was able to cut it in half, and that'll be plenty to do the front and the back. And you can see I've already got half of it pressed on. You got to really make sure that you don't come out too far away from the frame here, or it'll show through after you put your trim on. So I just test fit my trim a couple times and pushed it back in areas where it was kind of showing through, and pulled it back out to readjust it, put the trim back down, and make sure that we're looking good. And then I really pushed it down real tight into the joint of where the roof meets up with this black frame. What this butyl tape is for is to seal it up real tight so you don't get water in there. Okay, so on the passenger side, for you 87, 88 guys like me, you know that we've got a 3-piece set of trim here. So what I've done is you had to put this little cap that covers up the joint in the middle. There's a little ear like that one that fits underneath the felt strip. And so I've got it underneath there, and then I put some more sealant in there once I was done. Lined up the holes with a rivet to let it set up, and then this will feed in along the joint here like that. And then once it's all pushed up tight where your rivets are going to go, as you can see, I don't have any of that butyl showing through. And then on the inside, you'll just line up the holes where the rivets that you've already pushed through the felt, the holes are lined up. And then this one should push through once I get it in the right spot. All right, that should push in, yep, there. So that's in all the way, so that hole's lined up. And now I can get the other 4 lined up. A good way to get these started is take a pair of needle nose and find your spot. And these are pretty sharp and hard to hold on to with just your finger, but if you use a needle nose to get it started, well, it would help if I aim the camera right. You can use needle nose to really push them in there without cutting up your fingers. And just be really careful with your newly painted channel. Don't let your rivet process tear all that up. We'll get that covered up before I actually take the rivet gun to it. So let's try one more. And I had to set the camera down to get this last one lined up, but it went right in. Just a little bit of wiggling back and forth to find its home. So there's the 5 rivets. We got to get this into place next. Make sure it's nice and tight up against everything. And then we'll rivet these in. All right, so I'm gonna start on the corner here. I've got a rubber glove kind of protecting everything underneath where I'm putting this. I'm pushing as hard as I can back towards the direction that the rivet, and I got the wrong size. Never mind. And I'm back, had to switch out the head on the rivet gun here to get the right one. So again, I'm gonna be protecting the area with the rubber glove. I'm gonna be pushing back towards the back of the car as hard as I can. All right, once I can feel it grabbing and I get 2 pulls, now I'm gonna expect it to pop next. There. And so if you're expecting it to pop, you can kind of keep more control over so that it doesn't fall off and hit something that you don't want. So let's take a look here. You can see, okay, there's one. I'm gonna check that all the other ones are still in place. And now we'll go on to this next one right here. So I can feel it grabbing. So there's 1, and there's 2, and now I'm gonna expect it and just barely hit, almost probably went on the second pull. So even on the second pull, you're gonna wanna anticipate that it's about ready to pop off. All right, let's go to the next one here. These are the ones in the middle of the roof that you wanna be more careful with to not damage anything with your rivet gun. So there's a lot less room to mess with when you're right next to these channels. And you're not really gonna be able to hit it level either. There it was. Now what you're gonna notice, what you're probably gonna have happen to you is when you can't get a level angle with the rivet gun, your rivet's gonna pop and it's gonna be tight, but it's gonna kind of be at an angle. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to take a little punch and I'm gonna try to punch it flush here. And when you get to this very inside corner, you really got to be careful because there's a lot of things you can chip your paint up on. You got this bar here, you got your trim here, and you got the inside. So you are not going to have a whole lot of room, but we're going to try to feed this in there and keep everything protected with the rubber glove. And again, I'm pushing as hard as I can towards the back and get this rivet started. And it only took 2 on that one. I'm gonna give it a couple taps to knock down any high edges. And again, be careful with your tools. You can see there, everything nice and flush. And there's all 5 on the passenger side, and the trim cap goes on top, so this feeds in through a channel just a little bit so that it overlaps. And I think that is looking pretty darn good. So let's get the other side. Well, I've had several where part of the rivet leg breaks off in the gun, but it doesn't break off at the rivet head, and it leaves you a portion that you then can't get a hold of again with the rivet gun. So all I do is I wiggle this back and forth slowly, and it'll eventually break off. And then I'll just tap the edge of it with that punch again to make a smooth surface. And there we go. Got it all put in, and we'll get to the front probably next weekend. So next, after the trim here is put on, we're gonna do the trim up on the top here. I've already got the passenger side done, so I've pushed this piece of trim in underneath this cap. The cap had already been riveted on the passenger side in one spot, so this piece of trim slides underneath it, and there's a little lip, a little bend on the cap on the front, so you got to make sure this goes inside it. It gets sandwiched in to get a nice clean fit. Right here you can see a little bit of butyl is squished out, so I'm going to lift the trim up and then use this tool to get all that pushed up under in there, so it's not showing before I do any of the rivets. And I'll look all along the edge for any spots where the butyl might be sticking out. All right, I've got everything pushed in where I want it. Make sure that you push your trim here this direction so that this little hook on the trim wraps down underneath this piece of trim that we just put on. This won't just push straight up once it's pushed in towards the middle all the way. You have to pull it back towards you a little bit if you want to pull this up again, because it gets locked in down here. So as you see, this rivet is held in real tight. This one though is pretty loose. So I need to really make sure I have this trim exactly where I want it before I start to rivet that one down. I'm gonna do this one first and get this corner exactly where I want it. Got a piece of cardboard here to protect my paint on the edge. When I go to rivet this down, I'm going to be pushing down and forward with one hand as I try to do the rivet gun with the other. Now I did the passenger side first, but I did not do that last rivet until I got both sides ready, just in case I needed just a little bit of movement to get everything to line up. So now that I have the rest of them done, I'm gonna get this one lined up and then do these last two. We'll be done. And we got everything in. Everything is lined up good. I'm now just gonna follow back with this little flat faced punch. And another week has passed since I got the trim on. Again, I'm really happy with it. It's lined up real well to the body. It's tight, firm against there with the rivets. This felt strip is well adhered, and now my only real complaint is with the weather stripping. So that was the other rant, if you saw it. I'm just let you know that I have ordered a 5th piece this time from National Parts Depot, and hopefully it'll be here in a couple days, and I'll give it a try, see how it looks. But again, this is the 4th piece. You can see I've tried to fill one hole that came with it with that weather stripping adhesive. And then on this end, it's getting really thin too, and starting to break through. I don't have this permanently installed yet. I've just got it in here to test fit it and get it lined up where I want it. It would all have to come back out and put in some additional adhesive and butyl in a few places to plug up some holes before I permanently install it. And I'm afraid taking it out and back in again might rip through. So we're gonna try piece number 5, and maybe it'll have a different date on it. Maybe it's older stock, I'm hoping. And on the driver's side, I haven't even really test fitted it at all yet, but on the driver's side, that looks better. I haven't wiped this off with all the film from the mold release, but the actual rubber seam is not near as thin looking on that side.